Imagine you spent the last 10 years of your life meditating. Like you wake up early, you do your yoga, you read, every dense philosophy and self-improvement book you can get your hands on.
Right, you're really doing the work.
Exactly. You are doing the work. And then a teacher looks you dead in the eye and just says, stop. Like everything you have gained, lose it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a lot.
It's completely terrifying.
Yeah.
Because if you are the kind of person listening to this deep dive right now, you are probably a learner.
Yeah, definitely.
When you face a problem, your instinct is to roll up your sleeves, gather information, and just actively build a solution. So being told to stop trying, to actively abandon your progress, probably sounds, well, insane.
It goes against literally every survival instinct and, cultural narrative we have. I mean, we are conditioned to believe that if there is a gap in our understanding or our well-being, we have to bridge it with action.
Right. We want to add something new to our toolkit.
Exactly. But the source material we are exploring today challenges the very foundation of that instinct. It just completely flips it.
It really does. So just to give everyone a quick overview, we are looking at a transcript from a YouTube video. It's titled, Stopping Doing, Simply Being, and it's delivered by a speaker named Gangaji.
And the setting of this talk is actually crucial to understand.
Right, yeah. She delivered this message on a day of profound national and global importance. The text specifically describes it as a day for, quote, remembering terror and grief, fear and anger.
Which is, that makes her central claim incredibly radical. On a day characterized by intense, overwhelming negative emotions, the whole mission of her talk is to explore this idea that peace is not found by escaping that terror or grief.
It's not an escape hatch.
No, not at all. It's not someplace else that you have to travel to or work toward. She argues that peace is, it's always here.
Okay, as someone who actively tries to solve problems, that sounds completely counterintuitive to me. Like it almost sounds a bit passive.
I can totally see why you'd say that.
Because if there is grief or terror happening, my immediate reflex is to, do something to fix it. Or at least learn a new technique to cope with it. Telling a dedicated learner that peace is already here and we don't need to go find it, that feels like, well, giving up.
It feels like giving up because we equate doing with succeeding, right? We can't separate the two.
Yeah, exactly.
So our goal today is to sort of deconstruct what the word here actually means in this specific context. We are going to look under the hood at the mechanics of our own minds, bypassing all that, dense spiritual jargon.
Please, yes, no jargon.
Right, to really understand why our relentless, exhausting drive to fix things or attain peace might actually be the exact mechanism keeping us from experiencing it.
Okay, let's really unpack this, because the source starts with this massive, glaring paradox. If peace is supposedly always here, like she says, why on earth do we constantly feel like we don't have it?
That's a great question.
Why are we all so stressed out if peace is just sitting right in front of us?
Well, the speaker lays the blame squarely on something quite surprising. It actually isn't our failures that are keeping us from peace. It is our spiritual ambitions and our relentless self-improvement practices.
Okay, and I have to push back on that on behalf of anyone listening who really values self-growth. She specifically mentions practices like, yoga, the pursuit of deep understanding, experiencing devotion. Wait a minute, how can learning or doing yoga or feeling devotion possibly be a bad thing? I mean, those are the very tools we use to become better people.
Well, she doesn't say they are inherently bad. In fact, she compares these practices to a sublime medicine or a really good education.
Okay, so they're useful.
Highly functional, yeah. They serve a very practical purpose for the body and the mind by, channeling your energy and preventing you from becoming completely fragmented or scattered in your daily life.
Okay, so the medicine is good, but then she says they become a poison the exact moment we use them to try and, get to a state of unity or oneness.
Yes, that transition is key.
And if I'm trying to wrap my head around this, I keep coming back to a specific analogy based on her logic. Imagine you are frantically driving around your neighborhood, right? Burning gas, white-knuckling the steering wheel, just desperately looking for your house.
Oh, that's a great visual.
But the reality is you are actually already sitting on your own living room couch.
Let's take that analogy a step further to really see the mechanism at work here.
Right.
Because the act of driving a car is a perfectly fine skill, just like yoga or studying.
Right.
But if you are burning gas to find home while you are physically sitting inside your house, the frantic searching does something really dangerous to your brain.
Like it tricks you.
Exactly. The more gas you burn, the more convinced you become that your house must be miles away.
Because, yeah, why else would I be driving so hard if I wasn't lost?
Precisely. When you say to yourself, I need to understand more, I need to practice more yoga, I need to achieve samadhi.
And samadhi is just like a term for that state of intense meditative concentration where you feel totally absorbed, right?
Right, exactly. So when you chase that, you are subconsciously buying into a massive, unquestioned belief. You are operating from the starting premise that who I am right now is not enough. Or, what is here right now is fundamentally separate from peace.
Oh, wow. So you're adopting the identity of someone who is lacking.
Yes. So what starts as a helpful medicine, like the discipline of a daily practice, actually turns into a sweet poison. It poisons your perspective by constantly validating this illusion of separation.
So even if you know better, it doesn't matter.
Right. It doesn't matter if you intellectually understand the concept that everything is connected. If your daily lived experience is, oh, I've got to work hard today to get to that connection, then your actions are fundamentally contradicting your intellectual understanding.
You are basically using the medicine as undeniable proof that you are sick.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Which makes perfect sense when you lay it out like that.
Yeah.
But if we are constantly striving and treating our spirituality or mental health like a goal to be achieved, we inevitably start measuring our progress, right? Like if we are taking the test, we want to know our grades.
Oh, absolutely. We love a metric.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The speaker points out that the way we evaluate our progress is by constantly misinterpreting our own changing states of mind.
Yeah. And the source provides a very grounding, almost comedic analogy here to highlight just how absurd this habit is. It is the body analogy.
Right, the physical body.
Think about your physical body. When you get a rash or you have indigestion or, your muscles are contracted and sick, what do you say? You say, my body is sick. Or if you feel energetic, you say, my body feels great today.
Right. What you absolutely do not say is, oh no, I'm sick. I lost my body. Has anyone seen my body?
Yeah.
I need to do some stretches so I can get my body back.
Exactly. Because the constant in that physical equation is obvious to us. The body is the stable stage where the temporary play of sickness or health is happening. As the speaker jokes, unless we are 99.5% psychotically gone, we don't make that fundamental error in the physical realm.
But when it comes to our internal world, our mental and spiritual state,
Oh, we're completely neurotically gone.
we make this exact mistake all day long. We experience this beautiful, blissful state the speaker calls an oceanic realization, where you feel this like immense sense of unity. You feel like you are one with everything around you, and it feels amazing.
It's the peak experience.
Right. But then, because we are human, that state shifts. We get stuck in traffic. We get stressed at work. We feel negative. And our immediate reaction is just panic. We think, oh no, what happened? I lost my consciousness. I lost my peace.
Look at the mechanical error happening there. We have been conditioned to worship beautiful states. We treat bliss, awe, and calm as undeniable proof that we are on the right track, that we are, close to peace.
Right. It's the A+ on the test.
Yeah, exactly. And conversely, we despise negative states. We treat contraction, anger, fear, or even just boredom as absolute proof that we are failing, that we are somehow separate from peace.
We literally treat our emotions like a spiritual report card. An A+ means we are enlightened. An F means we are totally disconnected. But, if I use that logic, I'm going to be on a roller coaster forever.
Which is exactly why the speaker points out what we are entirely overlooking in all of this. There is one thing that is absolutely present in both the A+ scenario and the F scenario.
And that is?
The observer, the consciousness itself. It never left. It was entirely present, experiencing the oceanic bliss, and it is equally present, experiencing the contracted negativity and the loss of the bliss.
It makes me think of going to a movie theater.
Okay, I like this.
When you are watching a movie, you don't jump out of your seat and try to physically fight the villain on the screen. And when the romantic comedy part happens, you don't climb into the screen to join them. You just sit in the theater and watch the tension or the romance happen.
You're just observing it.
Right. The emotion is just the movie playing on the screen.
No.
We constantly confuse ourselves with the movie instead of realizing we are the theater itself.
That is a highly functional way to look at it. The theater doesn't disappear just because a horror movie is playing instead of a comedy. But because we are so addicted to the comedy, the bliss, we keep trying to manipulate the movie projector to only play the good scenes. We genuinely think the theater only exists when the movie is happy.
Trying to constantly manipulate the projector sounds utterly exhausting.
It is.
And actually, that sheer exhaustion is exactly where the speaker's own personal narrative comes into the source material. She reaches this breaking point where she realizes that trying to micromanage these mental states is a completely broken mechanism.
And breaking a deeply ingrained mechanism usually requires a shocking intervention.
Yeah, she shares a very vulnerable story. She describes being in a state of absolute despair. And it wasn't because her external life was falling apart. She actually notes she was relatively happy in her day-to-day life. But the deep despair came entirely from her spiritual practice.
Because she couldn't keep that oceanic consciousness state from fading.
Exactly. No matter how much she meditated, no matter what text she read, the bliss would appear, and then inevitably the movie would change. The bliss would leave. She couldn't lock that side of the equation in place permanently.
Which is so frustrating.
So she is in this state of desperate exhaustion, and she prays for a teacher. She finally meets this teacher, and his advice is honestly terrifying to anyone who has ever prided themselves on working hard.
Yeah, he doesn't give her a new mantra or a better yoga pose. He tells her very directly, give up your search. He says, stop. Stop where you are. Whatever you have gained that you didn't have before, lose it.
Lose your definition of yourself as someone who has gained something. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of the listener for a second.
It's hard to even imagine.
If you have spent years trying to be a more mindful, patient, spiritually evolved person, and someone you respect looks at you and says, stop trying, throw away all your progress, the immediate visceral reaction is going to be fear.
Oh, absolutely.
You highlighted this so well when looking at her reactions in the text. She was terrified. Her immediate thought was, if I stop trying to be good, won't I fall back into the morass of neurosis I had when I was 9 or 11 or 16?
It is the ultimate fear of regression.
It's like if I stop pedaling the bicycle, won't I just fall over into the mud?
Yeah.
It is a totally valid psychological fear. We build these scaffolding structures of habits and identities to keep ourselves out of the mud.
We do. But notice what the teacher's command actually does. Up until that exact moment, she didn't really have a choice in her life. She was just operating a biological and psychological mechanism.
Seeking bliss, avoiding pain.
Exactly. Seeking bliss, avoiding pain. Just a rat in a maze looking for the cheese. When the teacher said stop, it presented a true, terrifying moment of choice.
She could have nodded, pretended to understand, taken on the new identity of a quote-unquote good student, and secretly kept searching for the cheese.
She definitely could have. But she chose to actually investigate the command, even if she fully believed it meant returning to the neurotic hell she had originally crawled out of.
Which takes incredible bravery.
It really does. And what actually happened when she stopped the mechanism wasn't a massive explosion of fireworks. It wasn't a permanent, locked-in state of euphoria.
Right, she describes it as a trapdoor opening.
A trapdoor opening. And what that means mechanically is a simple resting of the mind's frantic activity. That deeply ingrained, exhausting instinct to reach out and grab onto good things to keep them permanently, or to violently push bad things away to avoid them.
The pushing and pulling.
Yes, that entire mechanism simply powered down.
So the trapdoor opens, the mechanical search for a better feeling stops. And that leads us to a really profound question. What actually remains in that quiet space once the frantic searching is gone?
That's the core of it.
The speaker issues this incredibly radical invitation to her audience. She asks them, just for the hour and a half they're sitting together in that room, to give it all up. Give up the yoga, give up the pursuit of understanding, give up the devotion, give up the need to be a good student, or to extract some deep insight from the teacher.
She is literally inviting them to actively strip away every single acquired identity.
She calls it the beforeness. And this is such a wild concept to me. What is left in your core before you learned who you were, before you rebelled against who you're supposed to be?
Right, before any labels.
Exactly. Before gender, before you discovered you were ignorant, and maybe the biggest trap of all, before you discovered you were enlightened or spiritual, before you knew anything.
It is the absolute foundational layer of existence, the theater without any movie playing.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this deep dive right now? Because we still have to live in the real world.
We can't just sit in a room forever.
Right. We still have morning commutes, performance reviews, and complicated relationships. If everything we know about ourselves, every label, is acquired and therefore secondary, how do we actually operate on a random Tuesday?
That is the crucial how of this whole philosophy. It is all about recognizing what is primary versus what is secondary. Here, That space of beforeness, that constant theater, the observer, that is primary. Operating from that space doesn't mean the world suddenly stopped happening. Forms will still appear. You will still have conversations with your boss. Emotions, both thrilling and terrifying, will still wash over you. Deep understandings will come and go.
The text literally says they are interesting. It's interesting what appears and disappears.
They are interesting, but they are no longer your core identity. The true self is the space of here itself. It is the unchangeable backdrop. It doesn't lead, it doesn't follow, and most importantly, it doesn't disappear when your mood inevitably changes.
That is such a relief to hear.
It is. The mechanism of suffering, that deep despair she felt, comes entirely from resisting the reality of the present moment. When you strip away the labels of, oh, I'm a good spiritual student who shouldn't be feeling sad right now, the resistance drops.
And when the resistance drops, the suffering drops.
Exactly. What the speaker's ultimately pointing to is that true choice and real, authentic spiritual investigation only actually begins after you stop mechanically searching for a better state.
It is like you finally realize you have been driving around your own neighborhood for hours. You park the car, you walk inside, you sit on your own couch, and you realize, oh, I am already here. The house was never lost.
You were there all along.
Right. And now, what do I actually want to do with my day?
The frantic, exhausting energy of the search dissipates, leaving you with incredible clarity.
To bring all these pieces together and recap the journey we have been on today, we started by challenging the core instinct of the learner, which is to constantly acquire more tools and knowledge.
We really had to unpack that.
We did. We saw how the frantic search for spiritual understanding or blissful mental states can actually become a sweet poison because it fundamentally reinforces the lie that we are separate from peace.
Right.
We explored the body analogy, realizing how ridiculous it is to treat our changing emotional weather like we somehow lost our consciousness. Just like we wouldn't scream that we lost our physical bodies when we get a stomachache.
Which is such a great mental check.
And finally, we unpacked the terrifying but ultimately liberating command to drop the tools, give up the search, open the trapdoor, and simply rest in the beforeness of right here.
It is a massive, fundamental shift in how you view your own mind. And to build on the logic we have discussed today, I really want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you step back into your day.
Let's hear it.
We spend so much of our waking lives playing a brutal game of tug-of-war with our own minds. We pull hard to keep the joy close, and we pull hard to drag the sadness away.
It's exhausting.
The next time you find yourself desperately trying to fix a bad mood, or conversely, desperately trying to chase down and hold on to a fleeting moment of happiness, what would actually happen if you just dropped the rope?
Just let it go.
What if, instead of staring so intensely at the emotion itself, you tried to shift your focus to the silent, unchangeable space where that emotion is currently happening?
Stop obsessing over the movie and just feel the theater.
Because that space, that underlying piece, is always effortlessly, choicelessly here.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will catch you next time.